Hi everyone, welcome again to another video for beginner artists by a beginner artist, where I will be telling you about the most important shape that you need to know if you want to move from 2D shapes into 3D shapes. Now you're probably thinking it's maybe a square, a triangle, or even a circle. And if you chose a circle, well, you'd be half right. Circles are useful if you're looking directly at a cylinder or a spherical shape, but these aren't that common. In reality, if you squash a circle, you'll get something called an ellipsis. This simple shape will catapult you from basic flat 2D images into more complex 3D structures and shapes. If we were to take these two angles of a cylinder, being a circle and a rectangle, these being 2D views of a shape, and then convert them into a 3D structure, you can do this by squashing the circle into an oval and combining it with two parallel lines to create this 3D structure. And this can be done by harnessing the power of an ellipsis. These can be at varying levels of thicknesses, but essentially you can connect a series of these together to form your complex shapes. This is how, for instance, I would draw a hand. And although this example I'm drawing now is a pretty terrible example, it can be the basis of a lot of 3D structures moving forward in your journey to become a better artist. Now, I think it's worth repeating that you should correct as you go, rather than erasing your mistakes, because you could just make those mistakes again, and learning that failures and mistakes happen and moving on anyway is an extremely healthy way to process as an artist. Now, here is an example where I have used many different ellipses to form more complex structures. You can see this by highlighting these joints in the fingers. This is where ellipses started to create these higher complexity 3D structures, including the wrist and the joints on this finger as well. These are all frameworks we can use to then add different layers and complexity to our already more complex structures. Now you're probably asking, how do I effectively create an ellipsis the same every single time? Well, you can kind of form basic guidelines to create this, but in reality, this is often harder. We can kind of create our guidelines of how wide and how thick we want our shape to be. However, in practice, this may be a bit harder. Now, it's very clear that I'm still learning this myself, but I thought it was an excellent opportunity to show it to all of you. So, how can it go wrong? Well, if you squash a circle, it should be very uniform. And looking at this shape here, it's quite pointy around the edges. Think about having a empty tube of toilet paper, and if you step on it, it'll crush it and flatten it, and it will no longer have that oval shape. Equally, if the edges are not uniform and reflective, this could be considered another damaged oval or ellipsis. So in reality, what you have to do is just practice. And what I think would be quite a healthy way to practice this is, before you do any kind of exercise, just spend 5 minutes drawing the shape again and again at different angles, different thicknesses. And not only will this warm up your hands to draw your actual piece, but it will also help you practice one of the key fundamental steps for 3D art. I think it's worth knowing that changes in the width of an ellipse they are dictated by the points of which you can view the object. So this will depend heavily from the kind of perspective you've got from your object. So if you were to get a glass, that rim of that glass is going to look very different depending on the angle. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of me practicing the use of this technique, and I'd like to stress that I'm learning this for the first time, much like all of you. I'm not very practiced, but I wanted to show that even if you're not very good at something, it doesn't hurt showing it to others, and hopefully we can all learn from each other. So it certainly helps having an object in front of you to draw from and get inspiration from, but what I'm going to do is draw a series of bottles. So I'm going to try and make this as symmetrical as possible, but you can see this bottom ellipsis is going to be almost matching the top one to kind of give it this angled approach, like I'm standing above it somewhat. And when you practice these sketches, feel free to draw all the way through an object as if it was see-through. This can really help getting your structure correct with the correct proportions. So I'm going to show you another example here where I can rotate an object, in which case it'll be a jug, and your traditional uniform shapes will be a set of ellipses which are kind of in parallel with each other. This is not the best representation, but again, I'm practicing. Hopefully the more videos that I post, you'll see some kind of progression, but I suppose that's yet to be seen. So you will start with your basic shapes, in this case the ovals, and then once you've got the framework together, you can add a bit more additional details to give the impression of the object that you're drawing in real life. A key piece of information which I have apparently decided to ignore, that the height compared to the width of your object is key and can often help create the correct proportions of your object. All three of these objects that you're looking at should realistically have the same proportions. However, I am rushing through this without much planning, and I'd say it goes quite badly wrong. So I would practice a lot more, and hopefully I can come back to you in maybe a YouTube short where I can demonstrate what I've learned, maybe a bit better. If a shape is incorrect, it's only a matter of discovering how, and the cause can be one of a few reasons, but maybe the lines aren't moving up or down correctly, or maybe the lines are a bit wonky, the angle's not correct. You can change as you go along. Be ruthless with your drawings, and don't hesitate to change anything you see as incorrect. The earlier you adopt this attitude, the healthier of an artist you'll become. You'll become less frustrated and more willing to change and adapt, and this will really improve your technique a lot faster than being stubborn and blaming other things. It's okay to do things wrong, but keep on trying. Don't give up, and be a bit braver. Try something you haven't done before. That's certainly what I'm doing now in front of quite a lot of strangers. It's always a good idea to start off simple, but don't try to be too ambitious. Get the techniques correct. Find a very basic object around your house. Could be a glass or a mug or a bowl, and just try it at a couple of different angles. Hopefully you'll be more successful than me. And I thought I'd wrap this up with my final drawing. Again, it's another bottle, but it's going to be a more simple approach. I'm going to use my framework using the ellipses and create the basic structure, and then add a bit of shading, which is not the best, but that's a lesson for another day. Of course, as soon as you start to feel tired or bored, it's okay to stop. Don't go against your better nature. That's your body telling you that you're probably not taking in the information as much. So feel free to drop it, pick it back up later, and this will also encourage positive habits of doing it little and often. When you get used to that, you can try to do longer sessions. If you're excited about a piece, you'll know, you won't be bored, you want to keep finishing, and you'll learn a lot more that way. Now, what I have here is my finished bottle. I'm going to add a bit of shading to the left, but even drawing this for the first time in front of you all, I feel like I've already learned quite a lot. So please give this a go yourself, and yeah, don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zones a little bit, but be ambitious, but not too ambitious. Move from your current flat 2D shapes to these more complex 3D ones. Thank you all for watching. In no time you'll be able to draw whatever you put your mind to it, and I'm looking forward to that to myself, and I'm looking forward to all of you drawing that as well. So thank you for joining. Let me know what you'd like to see in a future episode, and I'll see you all later. Bye.